Mickey Rooney is a Hollywood legend if there ever was one. The actor's career span more than 9 decades and 300 films, with almost as many failed marriages as movie credits, and a rags-to-riches story that reads like a Six Flags roller coaster. Rooney was a falling star. Vanity Fair called him the original Hollywood train wreck, and with all of these facts, it's hard to disagree. Mickey Rooney got famous playing boy-next-door types, but his cherubic appearance hid a dark side few ever guessed at, which we'll get into a bit later. Mickey Rooney's name isn't actually, well, Mickey Rooney. The famous actor we all know today as Mickey Rooney was actually born Ninian Joseph Ewell Jr. in 1920. The long process of this Ninian guy becoming Mickey Rooney began when he changed his name to Sonny Ewell, then to Mickey McGuire, Mickey Looney, and finally Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was known for his stature, at just 5'2". Rooney was a short guy. It didn't help that he was baby-faced well into his 30s. But despite his shortcomings, Rooney still managed to tower over his contemporaries by standing on top of his box office grosses. From 1939 to 1941, he was the biggest box office draw. Even Laurence Olivier called him the greatest actor of them all. Greatest, except for one. In his autobiography, Life is Too Short, pun likely intended, Mickey Rooney made a bold statement. The actor claimed that another famous Mickey had gotten their name from him. Rooney stated that while Disney named Mickey Mouse after him, despite the striking similarities between these two Mickeys, it turns out that this story is false. You're often told in show business to break a leg for good luck. A young Mickey Rooney may have taken that idiom far too seriously. In one of his first widely praised roles as a mischief-maker Puck in 1935's A Midsummer Night's Dream, the little tyke did, in fact, and quite literally, break his leg. The role garnered much attention for Rooney, even though he had a double throughout much of the film. Whatever his name was, Mickey Rooney was destined for the stage and the silver screen. Rooney's mother was a burlesque performer, and his father was a vaudevillian. And entertaining was the family business. Rooney's mom and dad had him performing in their production of A Gaiety Girl when he was just 17 months old. Mickey Rooney moved to Hollywood with his mother and quickly landed the role of Mickey McGuire that would launch his career. But for the audition, the part called for a dark-haired child. Rooney was blonde, and his mother couldn't afford hair dye, so she did what any showbiz mother would do and used burnt cork on the kid's head. Mickey Rooney rose to superstardom when he landed the role of Andy Hardy in a series of successful films for MGM. With his diminutive stature and baby face, Rooney was able to portray the all-American teenager well into his 20s. One might question how much acting he was doing, however, as the hyperactive girl-crazy teenager wasn't exactly a stretch for Rooney. Not only did Mickey Rooney rack up more box office cheddar than his contemporaries, he also racked up more marriages than all of them, maybe even combined. The stereotypical Hollywood marriage, short and dramatic, all started with the comedic actor. Over the course of his career, Rooney collected a total of 8 marriages, each more dramatic than the last. To get through all of those marriages, he needed a head start. From the time he was 18, Rooney had already developed a love for love. While on the set of 1938's Marie Antoinette, Rooney began spending a lot of time in the trailer of his co-star, Norma Shearer, and they weren't running lines. Shearer was twice Rooney's age at the time and recently widowed. The affair was public and scandalous enough that it garnered the attention of one very powerful Hollywood mogul, MGM head Louis B. Mayer had some words for Rooney about his behind-the-scenes escapades. Mayer grabbed Rooney by his lapels and said, "Listen to me. I don't care what you do in private. Just don't do it in public. In public, behave. Your fans expect it. You're Andy Hardy. You are the United States. You are the Stars and Stripes. Behave yourself. You're a symbol." Rooney didn't exactly heed Mayer's sound advice. If you've heard any rumors about a Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland love affair, rest assured, they're just rumors. Probably. The two delighted audiences on screen, but according to Rooney, Judy and I were so close we could have come from the same womb. We weren't like brothers or sisters, but there was no love affair there. There was more than a love affair. That's not to say all the rumors weren't true. When he wasn't charming audiences or trying to charm another woman, Rooney was entertaining the troops. In 1944, the actor brought his talents all the way to the wary men of the battlefields of World War II. Rooney joined the U.S. Army and served more than 21 months entertaining men in active combat zones. Frankly, his love life sounds more dangerous than any active combat zone. Mickey Rooney's first marriage was to another Hollywood legend, although she was just a starry-eyed starlet at the time. At 21, Mickey Rooney seduced and married Ava Gardner, who was 19. The marriage was about as short as Rooney himself, as Gardner divorced Rooney the following year. Despite being the original Hollywood legend, Rooney didn't get one of those trophies most coveted by the Hollywood elite, at least not on merits. Sadly, when awards season came around, every year for 9 long decades, Rooney walked away empty-handed. The actor received a total of 4 Academy Award nominations and didn't win any of them. His one Oscar came in 1939 when his career was just getting going, but it was an honorary trophy, the Juvenile Award. Later on in 1983, he won another honorary Oscar. Better than nothing. Rooney's second marriage, boy oh boy, was a nightmare. Rooney met and married Betty Jane Phillips in 1944. It was quite the year for Betty Jane, as she had just won the Miss Alabama pageant. If her name sounds familiar, it might be because Betty Jane went on to a successful music career as B.J. Baker. And let's just say that in Betty Jane, Rooney may have met his match. Rooney and Phillips had 2 children together and enjoyed almost 5 years of a wedded bliss. Still, Rooney's second marriage ended in divorce, and Phillips wasted no time moving on. Just 8 days after the couple finalized their divorce, Phillips married her second husband, Buddy Baker, and she had a good reason for kicking Rooney to the curb. When Phillips was pregnant with their second child, Rooney dealt her a devious act of betrayal. The actor met a young, very young Elizabeth Taylor on the set of National Velvet, and the two became close, shall we say. Phillips paid a visit to Rooney on set one day and walked in on him and a then 14-year-old Taylor who was on her knees in front of Rooney. Hint, she wasn't praying. Both Betty Jane Phillips and Mickey Rooney bolted out of their marriage and got into another one. Honestly, those two got married faster than a Formula One racer goes around the track. Rooney married Martha Vickers in 1949, the same year he divorced Phillips. They had a son together before Vickers couldn't handle Rooney's drinking anymore. Okay, the fourth time is the charm, right? Not exactly. Rooney's fourth marriage was a whirlwind of a love affair. Rooney met the model and actress Elaine DeVry, although at the time she was working as a waitress while she was practicing at a Hollywood golf range. To mix our sports analogies, something about her swing just knocked Rooney right out of the park. Everyone has a past, and Elaine DeVry was no exception. The beautiful waitress practicing her golf swing was hiding a secret. Before she tried her luck in Hollywood, DeVry had been married before to a mob guy. Once more, her ex owed the mafia a bunch of money and roped Rooney into it by asking him for a life-saving loan. Rooney didn't give it to him because, well, DeVry maybe had a thing for guys with money troubles. After returning from World War II, Rooney's career hit a slump. The actor was too short to be a leading man and too old to play a teenager. He signed a contract with MGM for $25,000 per film. While that might sound good, until then his fee had been $100,000 per film. Talk about a pay cut. Mickey Rooney would have money troubles for the rest of his life, despite earning millions of dollars over the course of his 9-decade-long career. Rooney had to declare bankruptcy twice in his life. Even more tragic than that, the actor passed on with assets of only $18,000 in 2014 and a drawer full of IOUs to the IRS. Nevertheless, Rooney's money troubles never stopped him from letting the good times roll. Want to know the trick to Rooney's charm? Tenacity. Just dogged tenacity. Rooney charmed DeVry by making bold claims about his wealth and proposing relentlessly. And we mean relentlessly. Rooney proposed to DeVry on every single date they had, 30 times in all. Eventually, DeVry said yes, and shortly thereafter said, "I do," in the most Hollywood way of all. He had a broken and a compulsive liar, and maybe even a little annoying, proposing 30 times. But Rooney was charming. In the most Hollywood of all Hollywood marriages, Rooney chartered a private plane to Las Vegas the same night that DeVry said yes, and tied the knot the very next day. Things that are done in haste never turn out well. Despite the hasty wedding and nuptials, the marriage actually lasted for a while. Rooney's marriage to DeVry lasted from 1952 to 1958, his longest marriage so far. But after sorting out Rooney's finances, only to have him gamble his way back into debt, DeVry fell in love with someone else, and so did Rooney. Mickey Rooney's fifth marriage was the worst one of all. This marriage has it all, including a tragic twist ending that no one could have predicted, but everyone should have seen coming. Mickey Rooney began dating the multiple beauty pageant winner Barbara Ann Thomasson while he was still married to DeVry. And Rooney wasn't exactly shy about it. Famously, Rooney bought Thomasson a $4,500 fur coat only to have DeVry get upset with the publicity of the scandal. So to smooth things over, he bought DeVry an even more expensive fur coat. And DeVry wasn't the only jealous one. Thomasson had a simple solution for Rooney's marital woes. A simple Shakespearean solution that would have made even Lady Macbeth blush instead of, I don't know, suggesting a marital counselor for Rooney and DeVry. Thomasson simply suggested that Rooney was married to the wrong woman. She told Rooney to divorce DeVry and marry her. Naturally, Rooney refused to divorce his wife to marry his mistress, and that sent the would-be Lady Macbeth into a tailspin. Rooney's refusal to divorce DeVry unsettled Thomasson to a disturbing degree. In a frightening incident that garnered national attention, Thomasson's friends found her allegedly unclothed, floating in the pool of a house that Rooney had rented for her. Fortunately, they fished Thomasson from the water before too long had passed. And that's just the beginning of the drama. Rooney's marriage to Elaine DeVry was far from a happy one. From Rooney's money troubles to DeVry's mafia connections, the marriage almost seemed doomed to fail. Finally, Rooney gave in to Thomasson's demands, and he filed for divorce from DeVry while in Mexico so that he could marry his mistress while she was pregnant. Believe it or not, these were the simple times. Eventually, Rooney relented to his mistress's demands to have him divorce his wife. But Rooney's divorce from DeVry at the behest of a pregnant Thomasson would cost him dearly. While they tried to reach a settlement, DeVry was demanding over $20,000 a month in alimony. While they finally did settle, Rooney was on the hook for even more. The exact amount is hard to come by, but some sources put it at the equivalent of $3.5 million to 2020. DeVry later said, "Living with Mickey is no bed of roses. 6 wives can't be all wrong." 6. And counting. Thomasson agreed to love Rooney for richer or poorer. 3.5 million poorer, to be exact. But who's keeping count? With his divorce from DeVry final, Rooney was free to make an honest woman of his mistress, and the two tied the knot in 1958. The marriage would last 8 years and end in tragedy, but not before a lot of drama. 5 years into the marriage, Rooney fell prey to old habits as if he had ever really fallen out of them. After a trip to Yugoslavia, Thomasson discovered that Rooney had been seeking the comfort of a stripper. Could she really have been surprised? Instead of getting angry or jealous, however, Thomasson switched back into Lady Macbeth and decided that it would be better just to get even. After learning that Rooney was having an affair, Thomasson took revenge. She didn't want to feel left out, so she went out and began an affair of her own. A mutual friend had introduced Rooney to the Yugoslavian actor named Milos Milosevic. Before long, while Rooney was away filming, Milosevic sparked up a relationship with Thomasson, and they moved in together. Divorce number 5 looked imminent. Despite their differences, Rooney and Thomasson stopped flirting with other people long enough to flirt with the idea of reconciliation. After all, the couple did have 4 children together, even if those children were living with their mother's lover. And speaking of, Milosevic wasn't about to let Rooney take his family back. Stoked by jealousy, Milosevic turned the drama of Rooney's 5th marriage into an utterly disturbing tragedy. While Rooney was away, filming in the Philippines, Milosevic decided that if he couldn't have Thomasson, then no one could. Sadly, he unalived Thomasson before taking his own life. The real tragic twist was that Rooney owned the implement that Milosevic used to write this sad ending. Rooney wasn't the only one devastated by the events that led to Thomasson's downfall. His 6th wife-to-be was also grieving. Marge Lane was best friends with Barbara and Thomasson, and she had had a front-row seat to the Rooney-Thomasson tragic love story. Lane had even had dinner with Thomasson the night of the incident involving Milosevic. You'd think she'd have steered clear. You would think that being so close to Thomasson's stormy marriage to Rooney, Lane would have avoided falling prey to the Rooney trap herself. But grief is a heck of a thing. Rooney and Lane became very close in the aftermath of their shared tragedy. So close, in fact, that they decided to get married later that same year. Rooney's marriage to Lane lasted for 100 days. I don't think that the ink on their marriage certificate had even dried, and at this point, if you're having difficulty following Rooney's marriage life, don't feel ashamed. He couldn't keep track himself. Once, when asked about his marital woes, Rooney mentioned Lane, his 6th wife, and then added, "I think that was her name anyway." Thankfully, Rooney's 7th marriage was a lot less drama-riddled than numbers 1 through 6. In 1969, Rooney married secretary Caroline Hockett in another last-minute Las Vegas wedding, and the two lived happily ever after. The end. Just kidding. If there wasn't much tragedy, there still was some drama. By the time Rooney signed his 7th marriage certificate, he had figured out the key to a happy marriage: marry younger. Caroline Hockett was 23 years Rooney's junior when they got married in 1969. Rooney was 48 and Hockett was 25. Evidently, Rooney was past his prime, and by 1975, Hockett had filed for divorce, citing financial instability. Rooney's 8th marriage would be his last marriage and his longest. In fact, marriage number 8 lasted longer than all of his previous marriages combined. But a long marriage doesn't necessarily make for a happy marriage, as Rooney was about to learn. All of those divorces might have been saving Rooney from a worse fate. Rooney's marriage to Jan Chamberlain was long, but it was also full of dramatic twists and turns. There were some bumps and bruises over those 36 years. For example, in 1997, Chamberlain called law enforcement and accused her husband of battery. Law enforcement hauled Rooney away, but ultimately did not lay charges against him, as there was lack of evidence. Abuse would be a running theme in this marriage. Chamberlain wasn't the only one claiming wrongdoing. Rooney also alleged abuse. According to the aging star, Chamberlain's son from a previous marriage had taken advantage of him. He claimed that Christopher Aber and his wife Christina had verbally and physically abused him and meddled with his money, whatever little he had left. It's hard to imagine that Rooney had any money left. His career was in the tank, and he had been paying out alimony almost as soon as he hit adulthood. Somehow, Christopher and Christina Aber still managed to squeeze some juice out of this lemon. The pair admitted to making off with approximately $2 million of Rooney's money. With all of the money troubles that he had, Rooney didn't struggle to get credit. On the screen, by the time Rooney was taking his parting bow, the veteran actor had racked up more acting credits than maybe any other actor of all time. All said, Rooney had 342 acting credits starting in 1926 and ending in 2017. Mickey Rooney's first marriage to starlet Ava Gardner set the stage for his ultra-dramatic life afterward. The union was far from ideal, but few knew the utterly brutal way that it came crashing down. Just a week after their wedding, Gardner had to be hospitalized for appendicitis. After 3 weeks, she was finally allowed to go home to Rooney. Gardner returned to their apartment and found evidence that while she had been in the hospital, Rooney had been busy cheating on her in their own home. Soon after, she filed for divorce. If you think that the current situation in the world has strained your familial relations, wait until you hear more about the Rooney-Chamberlain clan. Suffice to say, Thanksgiving dinners were tense gatherings. After Christopher and Christina made off with Rooney's money and abused the elderly actor, he filed for a restraining order. I guess that means his wife had 2 Christmases? Chamberlain shouldn't feel too bad that Rooney kept her son at arm's length. He did the same with his very own children. Rooney disinherited his 8 surviving children, not that they stood to inherit much from their poor father. To add insult to injury, Rooney barred his children from seeing him in his final years. Thankfully, he still had some friends left. By the end of his career, if it really did ever end, Rooney had left behind a string of Hollywood classics and failed marriages. Sadly, for all of his contributions, Rooney passed on without enough money to pay for his own funeral. In a show of appreciation for him and to demonstrate their love for the Hollywood legend, major film studios agreed to pay for Rooney's funeral. It was the respect he had never received in life. If you've enjoyed these stories, don't forget to show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Stay tuned because we'll be back with more incredible narratives soon. Thanks for joining us today, and until next time.